The aim of this video is to explain how the EU has grown and how that growth has impacted on Ireland as a member state, both economically and culturally. First of all, a little bit about the history. The EU began with 6 member states in 1951, and they were called the ECSC, that's the European Coal and Steel Community, and they were based really solely on trade in coal and steel and heavy manufacturing industry at that time. The 6 founding members of the ECSC were Belgium, France, West Germany, Italy, Luxembourg and the Netherlands. By 2013, this had developed or grown into 28 member states, now known as the EU or the European Union. In 2019, with Brexit, we lost Britain, so that means we are now down to 27 member states of the EU. There are many criteria to joining the European Union. One is that you must be a democracy or have a democratic political system. Number 2 is you must have your own book of laws, that's called a constitution. 3 is there needs to be a strong respect for human rights. And 4 is you need to agree to economic and monetary union with the other EU member states. There are many countries that have applied to get into the EU and have not been allowed. For instance, Ireland tried in the 50s and 60s to join the ECSC and they were refused because they didn't have a strong enough economy and enough industry. It wasn't until 1973 actually that Ireland was allowed to join. Turkey has tried for accession to the EU in recent years and they have still not been allowed in. One of the big reasons is because of their human rights issues or lack of human rights. It was only in 2003 or 2004 that they got rid of capital punishment like death by stoning and so on. So they do have to make a lot of changes to come on par with the rest of the European Union member states before they will be allowed accession. For leaving Cert Geography, you would be expected to know some economic impacts and some social impacts of the expansion of the EU on a member state. So let's have a look at the impacts on Ireland. We'll start with economic impacts. The first one is that there is free trade among member states. The Maastricht Treaty was signed in 1993 and this allowed the free trade and free movement of people between the member states in the EU. The free trade obviously means that there is no extra tariffs put on goods imported or exported within the 28 or 27 member states now. The free movement of people obviously means a larger labour pool. So, for example, we have had, I think during the Celtic Tiger years, we had almost 900,000 Poles come to work and live in Ireland at some stage. Likewise, as an Irish citizen, if you wanted to go and live in France or Spain tomorrow morning, you would be allowed to do so and you'd be allowed work, pay taxes, you'd be entitled to benefits and so on. In 1974, the EU heads of government set up the ERDF, that's the European Regional Development Fund. And this was really to try and promote economic growth throughout all of the member states by providing subsidies. So they send out money via structural funds and these really provide important financial help to the member states, especially to the poorer member states who really depend heavily on these funds. The EU member states have more foreign direct investment by multinational corporations. There's a lot more investment opportunities for Irish people abroad as well. We have a huge market now in the EU, over 500 million people living in the 27 member states, so providing a large market to sell goods and services to. Finally, a negative economic impact is that there's a very high cost of funding the poorer countries that have joined the European Union, like Bulgaria, but some people take umbrage to this, but we must remember that Ireland was in this position back in the 60s and 70s when we were applying to join the EU. Over to some social impacts now. Obviously, the first one is that there's a cultural diversity. And in 2013, the census showed that 12% of people in Ireland were foreign born. And that's a huge amount of cultural diversity this country is seeing now since the Celtic Tiger years. And we wouldn't have seen this before the 1990s. We have many multilingual families, Irish people marrying migrants and their children's becoming bilingual, which is a great help and a great thing for children to have going forward and looking for work after school. We've many new communities here. We've a lot of Polish people here. We've Lithuanian and Latvian then will be the next biggest communities we have in Ireland. Polski sklep, that's Polish for Polish shops. You've seen them around, and they offer lovely Polish goods from Poland, and there's even Polish newspapers printed here in Ireland now as well. So it's great to see these new communities settling here in the country. One of the negative sides to social impacts is that there has been an increase in racism. You can have a look online to see, you can actually look at csi.ie, that's the Central Statistics, or cso.ie, Central Statistics Office, to see reports of racism and how many people have experienced it here in Ireland. There's a big changing food culture as well. You've probably noticed a bigger variety of restaurants and different meals and different types of food available as well. And many schools and creches have multicultural days, which allow students and kids to grow up understanding different cultures and just being more open to learning about different cultures. And so that is an overview of how being in the European Union has impacted or affected Ireland, both economically and socially.